Hey, Ryan, are we ready? Okay. Let's go ahead and let's start. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Adjustment for the City of Castle Hills will meet on the February 22nd, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. at the City of Castle Hills, City Hall, 209 Lemoore Drive, Castle Hills, Texas, 78213, to consider the following agenda. This meeting comes to order at 5:35 p.m. Call to order and determination of a quorum. At this time, I determine we do have a quorum. Agenda item number 2, consider the approval of the meeting minutes from the January 25th, 2021 Board of Adjustment meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
I have a motion
Second.
by Mr. Aiken. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second, Mr. Vegas. Any discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bruce?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Mr. Smiley Chaos voted in favor of the meetings as written. Thank you. Agenda item number 3, public hearing, discussion, and possible action on an application from Lisa Pilar and Pedro III Villanova for a variance for the front and side fence height and materials used on a property located at 300 Zornia, City of Castle Hills, Texas, CB 5778A, Block 7, Lot 12, contrary to Section 50-66, fences, subsection A, fences in the required front yard may not be higher than 3 feet and may not be constructed of materials other than wood, wrought iron, brick, stone, stucco, or finished concrete of the City of Castle Hills local code of ordinances. Item A, relief from Section 50-66, fences, subsection A, fences in the required front yard may not be higher than 3 feet of the City of Castle Hills local code of ordinances. Brian, can we go ahead and just open the hearing on this? Or do you
Yeah,
wanna
just
have
open the public hearing, call the time.
Okay. I have a time of 5:37 p.m. At this time, I open the public hearing. Do we have signed up to speak for this public hearing?
We have the applicants here and then also folks that signed up.
Okay. And the citizens to be heard roster is for the public hearing, correct?
Sir?
The citizens to be heard, this is for the public hearing, these signups, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Okay, first on the item is Pete and Pilar Villanova of 300 Zornia. You want to come up and approach the podium?
This is our first time having to do this, so bear with us.
Okay, will do, thank you.
So we're here today. My name is Pilar, and this is Pete.
Can you pull the,
You want us to speak into the mic? Sure. And we moved into Castle Hills in September, and we're very happy to be part of this community. And when we purchased our house, we knew that we wanted to put up a fence. We knew that a permit was required, and my husband did his research and found the fence doctor, Stephen Wall, to install the fence. He assured us that he was familiar with Castle Hills as he had put up many fences in this area and that he would obtain the permit. We did know we needed a permit, but we did not know we needed a permit because there was certain height and material that could be used for a front fence, okay? So we hired the fence doctor and we installed the fence, and I think it was a Friday that it was installed, and on the following Monday, we were notified by Officer De La Garza that we did not obtain the permit. So obviously we were shocked because Steve had assured us that he was going to take care of that. We have many reasons why we want a front fence and why we want it to be 4 feet and a chain link. We have 4 dogs and we want to allow them to roam the entire property. We also want to ensure safety of anybody that comes to a gathering, obviously when it's safe to gather, as we have large families and we want to host parties and whatnot in our yard and our front yard too, because we do have a beautiful front yard. And there's also reasons why, if you look at the map, Wisteria Lane intersects directly into our driveway. And there is just a yield sign, not a stop sign. And there are a lot of people that drive into our front yard thinking that it's a street, and especially at night. Do you want to speak, babe? Okay. And so I don't know if you want us to go through the information that we provided to y'all, or if we're just supposed to speak our case. The other reasons why is, I think it's question number 7, is we just want to ensure that we're also meeting the other code of compliance.
The standard of care.
Yes, the standard of care for our animals, which is section 6.151. It says an animal owner shall provide his animals with access to adequate supply of fresh air, and then also shall provide his owners with exercise. And then also the Castle Hills Ordinance number 2018-911A, section 6184, substantial fence of sufficient strength and height to prevent such dog from escaping therefrom. We do have dogs that could escape a 3-foot fence. As it stands right now, we have a door in our backyard that, I don't know how tall it is, but it is not secure enough. So we actually haven't allowed them to roam our backyard without us being in the backyard with them. And on top of, since we filed this variance, we have also had a change in our situation. So we also want to put in a pool in our backyard, and we have obtained that permit from y'all as well. And so Keith Czar's pool will start building a pool soon. So that really gives us even less access to the backyard for our animals.
Now, there's been a couple of times where I've had to walk the backyard and make sure that it's secure, because there's other animals, wild animals, that are digging up
Into our
and,
backyard.
and getting into our backyard. So it's always hard to leave them outside alone. So that's something that we always have to worry about. And in the front, it allows them to also see people, and they actually really love to run and get all the exercise they need in the front. Like,
Yeah, our dogs are city slickers, so
So
this is a change of environment for them, and so they do enjoy exercising in the front yard. But like I said, we were aware that we needed a permit. We thought the guy that we hired was going to obtain that for us. He failed to do that. I have put stop payment on paying him, just because we were shocked that, we spent so much money to put in a fence. And the other thing too is the fence that already existed on the left side of our property is a 4-foot chain link fence. So aesthetically appealing, we thought we were just putting in exactly what was already there. And then if you drive our neighborhood, and we've provided pictures of the neighbors in our neighborhood that have the exact same fence we do. So we didn't think anything of it. We didn't realize that it was the wrong type of fence.
and at the same time, we were selling our home and buying this one. That's why we weren't so.
That's why we didn't obtain the permit
And
ourselves,
yeah, and
because
he
we
assured
were,
us he was gonna do that, so we were like confident, we're like, okay, you can handle that, and let us handle selling the other house, 'cause I was going back and forth, getting it ready, so.
Okay,
so. Anyway, please let us know if you have any questions.
okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Okay, next on the list I have Kathy Walker.
Chair, board members, my name is Kathy Walker, and my husband Philip Walker, and I live at 208 Wisteria. We're right across the street from the Villa Nuevas. I thank you for the opportunity to present this argument against the chain link fence located at 300 Zornia Drive. In researching variances, I found a couple of guidelines for zoning variances and why people would present an argument for one. And it said that to get a variance, your property must have special characteristics that make it extremely hard to comply with the regulation. A hardship that's unique to that property and not common to the area. Self-created or financial hardships are not enough, nor are personal circumstances. The regulation would deprive your property of reasonable use that's fundamental to its use and enjoyment. And the granting of the variance would not change the character of your neighborhood, impair the use of adjacent property, or impair the purpose of the regulations. So I'm going to refer to those a few times throughout my presentation, but I'd like to first say, and they have admitted that they put up their fence without a permit. With no disrespect to the Villanuevas whatsoever, ignorance is not an excuse to disobey the law. Both of these individuals have been property owners, and so they are fully aware that it's up to the property owner to make sure they have a permit for any construction or installation that they put in. Regrettably, no attempt was made by the Villanuevas to speak to nearby neighbors prior to installing the fence to address what may be a reasonable concern for them regarding the fence installation. We were, in fact, very surprised that within days of moving in, the chain link fence was installed. I'd now like to address some of the comments they have made on their application regarding the need for the variance. The first one is the variance is necessary due to the property being located on a T section, which they have indicated. And then their fear that a driver could come up Wisteria and continue to drive into their property thinking that the road continues. Although we've lived here since 2004 and have never experienced this happening, this concern could have been addressed with the fence made of approved materials and height. There are several examples around the neighborhood for the Villanuevas to view and get ideas from. Two are located on Manton on the other side of Northwest Military Highway. And had they followed the proper process with obtaining a permit, I am sure the city would have recommended some ideas for them. Additionally, that intersection is not the only one that's located in Castle Hills. There's several instances of that. Castle Hills and Winston and Castle Hills is one, East Castle Hills Lane and Caladium and Cremeria. All of these are T sections. And so that is not a unique situation. I would also like to point out that the prior owners, Kelsey and Kevin Gray, removed a very old 3-foot wooden slat fence on that property, 300 Zornio, 2 years ago. When they approached the city to obtain a permit for a new wooden 4-foot fence, they were informed that it needed to be 3 foot high. The city said they would need to apply for a variance and it would require a fee of $400, which is standard. The Grays were on a limited income and decided not to go through with it. I'd just like to point out that according to the application, the Villanuevas were only charged $200 to post their variance. You have a petition in your packet with 50 signatures in support of enforcement of Castle Hills Code of Ordinance on front yard fences. In speaking to neighbors while obtaining the petition signatures, many shared they were denied permits for 4-foot or higher fences, and definitely none were approved for a chain link fence. In fact, many long-term residents have shared that a chain link fence has not been installed for over 20 years or more. I don't know when the ordinance was put in place, but I do know that it has been longer than 20 years. The second point they make is the variance is necessary due to a condition that not created by property owner, the existence of animal habitat and high-risk animals. Now I'd like to refer to one of the guidelines that I read earlier. The hardship must be unique to the property and not common to the area. Wildlife is common to this area. One can drive during any time of the day and see critter out and about. It is what makes this area unique and desirable. If the Villanuevas did not want this for their forever home, they should never have moved here. I would like to point out a particular wildlife they did not refer to, and that would be our mega hawks and owls. And to protect their dogs from them, they would need to build a dome over the yard to keep them out. Another item that they brought up, without the variance, the owner would be denied a right to use the property. The regulation of approved materials being used for front yard fences supports the use of a property owner's use of their yard, but in an aesthetically pleasing way. Additionally, 300 Zornia has a very large backyard, and that is protected by an approved, well-built wooden fence allowing for reasonable use for your pets. So I understand the argument that was made just a few minutes ago that there may be areas of the wooden fence that may be open. If you drive by that chain link fence, there are spaces at least 5, 6 inches underneath the fence where they have had to put rocks to keep it secure for their dogs. I think that a little bit of time could have been spent to fix the wooden fence to make sure that it was secure for their dogs in the backyard as well. I am a huge dog lover. We have 3 dogs of our own, and wanting to make your property fully accessible for your pets is commendable. You can do so within the city ordinances. Again, several properties around the neighborhood have substantial fences made of wrought iron, wood, brick, stone, or stucco that are sufficient to keep pets safe. I grew up in San Antonio and have always loved this area. Since 2004, we have seen many improvements made within Castle Hills. It is a desirable place to live. Note the increase in our property taxes. We have many new houses being built and many restorations being done. For the most part, the character and beauty of Castle Hills has flourished, and that's due to the fact that we have zoning commissions and we have Board of Adjustments that keep those ordinances in place. I ask the board to please not grant this variance. Granting him the variance will be contrary to the public interest, as it will affect our property values. Chain link is the cheapest fence you can put up, and it's the one that is the most not aesthetic. It's not aesthetically pleasing or in line with the city's character, and granting the variance will create a precedence for future abuse of the city's building ordinances. Please uphold the codes that were created to assist residents in maintaining the unique beauty and flavor of Castle Hills. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Next, we have Philip Walker. Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you.
So my name is Philip Walker. My wife Kathy, you just heard from. I should have compared notes with her because she stole some of my thunder, I'm afraid. Let me give you a little bit of background. Kathy and I moved back from California. We're both from Texas. We returned here in late 2003. I was working as a financial planner at the time for a major firm here in town, and I had a client that lived in Castle Hills. And I told her that we were looking for a home in Castle Hills, and she admonished me and told me that I shouldn't buy one in Castle Hillbilly section of the town. She lived inside the loop, and she referred to this area as not as attractive. And one of the main reasons was because some of the tacky types of fences that are up around here continue to remain in this area. People weren't really taking care of their houses. She admitted there were some beautiful homes here. She had some friends, but overall, she admonished me not to purchase a home in this area. Well, clearly, we didn't listen to her. We bought one of these houses that was an investment for us in Castle Hills. And we, over the last 16, going on 17 years, have made it into a very beautiful home. Had a lot of sweat equity gone into it and a great deal of money. Over this time, we're not alone with our neighbors. We had made arguably one of the most beautiful intersections in the city. It looked like a park until the Villanuevas moved in. Now, as you drive up into Wisteria, it looks like you're heading straight into Castle Hillbilly Trailer Park. It's just not aesthetically pleasing. Over this period of time since we've lived here, if we just take an area between West Avenue to Caladium, Northwest Military to Cremeria, just surrounding where our area is. Since 2004, we've seen 32 of these homes have either been built new where they tore down the existing houses, or they've done major additions and remodels, or people just painting and updating. But significant change has taken place in this period of time. Up until 6 months ago, everyone that's moved into this neighborhood has worked to raise the bar to make this more aesthetically pleasing neighborhood. So some of the homes that are just in the same area, 200 Wisteria is the appraised value is 611,000. 202 East Castle, 785,000. 204 Zornia, 518,000. 103 Zornia, 770,000. And that's the appraised value based upon Bear County. You know the market prices. These are the type of people that we want to continue to attract to move into our neighborhood. We don't want to degrade the view, devalue the property, and make no mistake. By putting up a chain link fence across the street from us, they not only devalued their own property immediately, but they devalued ours and our neighbors. So coming to Villanueva's request to provide a variance for them. They're not actually requesting that we provide a variance. They're asking us just to kind of this to the code of variances, because it clearly states that a fence is required, front yard may not be higher than 3 feet and may not be constructed of materials other than wood, wrought iron, brick, stone, stucco, or finished concrete. It's very clear. If you look at the arguments that they placed, they are irrelevant because they're not asking for a variance. It's just they keep arguing that they need a fence, and that's okay. We're allowed to build fences in our front yard. You just can't build that one. It's very clear that it's just not acceptable. And then the arguments are really nonsensical. They claim that there's high volumes of high-risk wild animals and reckless drivers. We've lived there since 2004. Yes, we have the wild animals, and as Kathy pointed out, the wildlife we appreciate greatly, and that's part of the character of the neighborhood. But Wisteria and Zornia are very quiet streets. We don't see anybody racing. We've never seen anyone race into their property except their friends. But other than that, it's very, very quiet. The police go through there constantly. It's just right around the corner is the station, and it's just nonsensical. The Villanuevas have presented evidence of 5 examples of chain link fences in the neighborhood, just in our immediate area. Actually, they put down 6 addresses, but one of them is a 301 Wisteria Drive that doesn't exist. And each and every one of these examples are excellent examples of why this code has been written as it has been. Because chain link fences are not appropriate for affluent neighborhoods. It makes sense in industrial parks, makes sense at prisons, put some barbed wire on the top of it, and it's appropriate for certain neighborhoods in the south part of town. Well, everybody puts these around their yards. But it's not appropriate for Castle Hills. Back in the 50s and the 60s, that's what people did. The property that they point out at 102 Zornia, that fence and building was put up in 1952. 208 Zornia, 1958. 201 Wisteria, 1955. 209 Manton Lane, 1945. 301 South Manton Lane, 1950. There hasn't been any new fences put up since then. All of these fences are grandfathered. We can't make the owners take them down. I wish we could, because they're very unattractive, but that's their property. So in a perfect world, we would not need codes of ordinances, but we don't live in a perfect world. We need those codes and ordinances to protect us from people with poor judgment and really bad taste. So the Villanuevas have admitted that they were fully aware of the requirements, but they've chose to just ignore it and blame it on somebody else. We for a long time have really enjoyed sitting on our front porch and looking at this beautiful view. We no longer want to sit on our front porch because we don't have a beautiful view. We're in disagreement. These folks think it's beautiful. They sit out in their front yard and they're very proud of what they've accomplished. But the majority of the people in the neighborhood do not agree. The neighbors right around them don't agree, except for Malcolm. I think that's him over there. But, he has old wire fences. He's got, brush that's grown up around him. You can't see the house from the street. And it's very different. What? Yeah, you're Malcolm, right? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's who he was. I thought he was one of the neighbors. But everyone that signed that petition represents the people that are trying to improve our neighborhood. Every one of them had something to say about that fence, and I can assure you, none of it was flattering. It's not what we want for our community. In item 7, the Villanueva state granting of the variance will be in keeping with the spirit of the ordinance and substantial justice will be served. Well, I ask, when has justice ever been served by allowing people to go unaccountable for their actions? They knew they needed a code. They just preferred they knew they needed a permit. They weren't responsible. And then where is the justice for the rest of us who have felt that we are protected by this codes of ordinances? So you gentlemen are the last line of defense. We've got the rules in place. We need you to support them.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Okay, next individual that have signed up, I guess remotely, Dr. and Mrs. McGuire. They want to speak via Zoom, I understand. Brian, are we prepared for that?
Yes.
Yes, this is Steve McGuire. My wife Melissa's here. Hopefully you can hear us clearly.
Dr. It's very faint, so speak as loud as you can, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. Obviously, I don't do a lot of Zoom. My daughter's an expert at it, but unfortunately, she's off at school. We live at 103 Zornia. We've been here. I actually bought my initial house in '89, and in 2007 was one of those referenced by Philip as rebuilding the house for a variety of reasons, including the original house was not in full compliance with City of Castle Hills codes. We made the decision at that time to tear down a house that had been built in 1987 so that we could build a forever home that would be in compliance with our codes. We agree with Philip's and Kathy's comments about the aesthetics of the neighborhood. A chain link fence does not add the aesthetics that we would prefer, not the aesthetics that helped attract us to Castle Hills. I could second many of the points they've already made about the wildlife. We certainly, our backyard has a 7-foot fence. And despite that, we have fox, possums, skunks come into our backyard. So a 4-foot fence will not stop the wild animals from coming in. They just, except for the deer, they just are a little bit more inventive. I would urge the board to reject this petition. I think that it is not in keeping with our neighborhood, is not in keeping with what we sought when we moved into this neighborhood, and it's not consistent with what I've observed over the last really decade plus of our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Squire, we also have a gentleman who'd like to speak, but didn't get to sign up.
Okay, I don't have them on the list I received, but let's go ahead if you want to approach, please. Please do. Could I get your name and address too, please?
Yes, my name is Marcus Elliott. I'm at 210 Zornia.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so as I said, 210 Zornia, I've been either living there or connected with the place since I believe it was 1986 that my mother and I moved in there from Almost Park. And I think there are a couple of things that that we're looking at as reasons to approve or not approve of the fence that's there. And I think, obviously one of them is which ordinances are in place governing, determining which materials we're allowed to build our fences from and so on. Well, clearly this is not a material that's approved in that ordinance. So that's one. The other thing, however, the other thing that I think we have to look at is aesthetics, right? Which I think is probably the reason for the ordinance in the first place, is the aesthetics, how it matches with the rest of the neighborhood, with, I would say, with adjoining properties, how it matches up with those. I think if there's too much clash going on, then that's certainly going to look a little bit awkward. So from that standpoint, I think that to have, so I live on one side of them. On the other side, their other neighbors, they already have chain link. Our fence between us, we have some type of wire. It is not chain link, but I think that between having the wire that separates ours and a chain link on their other side, and yet another third type of fence that they would be required to build out of, I mean, I think having three types of fence on one property, that's aesthetically a little awkward as well. So I would just like to say that, I mean, to me, the biggest thing to look at is not, I mean, the example has been given that of the 50 signatures, a lot of people have said, well, I wasn't allowed to. Well, fine, but aesthetics to me is a better reason to approve or disapprove this. Now, a brand new chain link fence maybe stands out against fences that have had some time to weather and so on, which is the case with any home or fence. That's just the way that it works. But I think in time, it will match up a bit more with the adjoining fences. If it were up to me, I would probably put some kind of a flowering vine, like a jasmine or something on there, but that's just me. So anyway, the point is, I think that aesthetically, it's something that in time will match up just fine. And and the other reasons that have been given, I don't think make much sense. The idea that it looks like a trailer park, well, no, it doesn't. I mean, that's just kind of I mean, no one thinks that. It looks like a trailer park. I mean, no one thinks, I've lived in Castle Hill, New Orleans, San Antonio for 43 years almost. And, the idea that anyone refers to the area as Castle Hillbillies, never heard that in my life, but no one judges this property for this fence. And I don't know, the idea that it's compared to a prison or anything like that, I just think is beside the point. So I think that's about it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Elliott.
Mr. Squire, for the knowledge of the board members, the fee was changed by city council from 400 to 200. On the application, it may still say 400, but if you look at it, it's kind of struck through and 200 next to it. The fee schedule was amended and dropped to 200 last year by city council.
So the application needs to be updated.
Just on the application.
Okay.
It's the link for the PDF, but when Mr. Zamarone reviews these, he's highlighted through it and put 200.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you for
that's
that clarification.
Mhm.
Okay, so do we have any other members that would like to speak?
Members?
You already had an opportunity to come up, so but thank you for that. I appreciate that. If we have any questions, we'll call you up during discussion.
I think, Mr. Squire, if you have no other comments to close the public hearing.
So I have now 6:10 PM. We're going to close the public hearing. Okay. Okay, commissioners, does anybody have a motion for discussion on this particular agenda item?
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the application for variance.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Califf, Smiley Califf, to deny the application or to deny, I'm sorry, the variance. Do I have a second on that motion?
A second.
Okay, I have a second from Commissioner Vegas. Okay, discussion. Bruce, do you want to kick this off remotely?
Sure, I'd be glad to. We have worked quite hard as former council, former mayor. There's other people here that have been on the council before to constantly update our codes, whether they be building codes, zoning ordinances, different ordinances that improve the character and value of the neighborhoods. This is updated based on the update of materials. Also, on this particular variance request, it is two parts. One is for height and one is for materials. Now, if this request had come to the city with exactly the same fence, it would have been denied and been referred to this board. Now, I cannot speak for the entire board, but speaking for myself, there are many times in the city that we grant a variance in height for various reasons. And a 4-foot variance is not that out of the ordinary. However, speaking solely for myself, a chain link fence variance, I would have voted completely against. And hopefully that the city and the applicants would work together to identify an acceptable material. Now, wire, we've talked about aesthetics with wiring. We just approved 2 months ago a fixed wire pole fence. And it's very acceptable to the neighborhood. So I think, and I'm not an attorney, I'm not going to say, but the recourse that I would see if the same thing were to happen to me is to go back to my contractor and tell him to take out the fence, especially if he's not been paid, and maybe build a fence that is acceptable. I agree with many of the statements that were made tonight in regard to the content of the variance request. It is not going to, the fence as it stands is not going to stop a car. It's not going to protect my dogs, especially when the gates are open most of the time. I just truly don't support this variance at all. Thank you, Mr. Squire.
Thank you, Bruce. Tom, any discussion or questions?
Yeah, so let me just ramble for a minute. So just to give everybody a little bit of background, I've got some experience with fences. Bruce, I think you probably know that. When I bought here in 1985, the house I bought for my aunt had a 2-foot rock wall surrounding the property. And on top of it was barbed wire and cedar posts, because that was the way you made fences back in the 1930s when they built the house. And I had a lab that loved to jump. and he was always jumping out. So I repaired that fence a few times. But eventually I had to come up here to the city. And what I found out was that if I could repair the barbed wire fence on top of the 2-foot wall, but I couldn't, if I replaced it, I was going to be out of code and I had to get a variance. So what I ended up doing was tearing it down and putting up a wrought iron fence about 3 feet tall on top of the 2-foot wall. So I had a 5-foot fence in my front yard. Some background. So I've worked with fences before. And spent money on fences. I've also been on the zoning commission and now I'm on the Board of Adjustment. And this is probably the toughest case I've ever been on. You know, we've had a lot of businesses that have come in and they've wanted to replat their property on West Avenue. West Avenue is a mixture of commercial and residential. And we get a few residents that are always for or against that. We've had some people come in, petition us with some nice looking little businesses. And on occasion they've been approved and sometimes they haven't. But this is a different matter because as you folks pointed out, and actually a lot of what the applicant said and a lot of what the residents said, I didn't agree with a lot of that from both sides, quite frankly. So that's why I get my chance to ramble. I'm rambling. I didn't agree with a lot of it from both sides. It is a tough deal because where you guys live, there's these old properties, just like the one that I moved into 30 years ago, 40 years ago, where there are similar fences in the front yard that have been grandfathered from the 1940s and 1950s, and that's just the way it is. I found that out in the property that I've lived at for many years. That's just the way that it is. They were grandfathered. Nothing you could do about it. I kind of liked it when I lived there that I had my fence like that in the front yard. Nobody could do anything about it. Kind of empowered me. But this is a tough deal because you guys are in an area where there are fences just like that. So the fence guy just sold you a bill of goods and said, yeah, you can do it because he saw some similar houses that had it there. He didn't know what the code was. Obviously, he never came up here. He would have figured that out. You know, the deal about looking like a trailer park, I really felt bad when that was said. Your house doesn't look like a trailer park. If you came before us and you wanted to put in a 4-foot wrought iron fence, more than likely that would be approved because it was a wrought iron fence. Unfortunately, you're here now wanting us to give an approval to a 4-foot chain link fence that's already been installed. And although we may have done that had you lived on West Avenue or a street like that, you don't live on West Avenue or Northwest or Lock Hill Selma or Northwest Military, which is, I happen to live on Lock Hill Selma, corner of Lock Hill Selma. You live on an interior street. And I can understand the neighbors not wanting to have any more 4-foot tall chain link fences in the front yard. We do grant, we had the rules in front of us too. We grant variances all the time. So just because it's written in black and white, well, that's why you get the opportunity to come up here and file an application for a waiver. So we do have things in black and white, but it doesn't mean we always follow them. We have different reasons why we do abandon those. But this is a really tough case. I feel sorry for you guys. I really do, because I think you have a fence sitting there that is going to be tough to get through this process and probably going to get through this process. And I'm sorry about that. So I guess I just want to tell you that before we take a vote. It's unfortunate. It's just where we're at.
Thank you, Tom. Justin, do you any comments or questions?
Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm sorry this is your first run-in with the city. I feel bad that you got duped by your contractor, but we always can't save you on that. I personally, when I do any work to my house and the contractor pulls a permit, I have them show it to me because, I don't think they do it all the time. I think they just, get an extra $100, $150 out of you. But had the permit been pulled, it would have shown that that type of fence is not allowed. And like other people have said, we have granted height variances but I don't see any reason for the chain link that any reason that you've said to put that through. And again, I apologize that your contractor duped you, and hopefully you have some recourse against them.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. I guess a real quick comment, if I may. We had a wonderful history brought up here and of Tom's history at the city. So unfortunately, I had a little opposite history. When I first got to this city, bought my house, moved in, it was all inspected, everything was supposed to be good to go. Well, a week later, my back fence fell down on my property. A day later, I swear it was like a day later, I got nasty grams from the city of Castle Hills telling me that I had to fix my fence. And I was like, I just moved here. What the heck is going on? And so that was my welcoming to Castle Hills. But I will say this is I think our codes and ordinances are there for a good reason. And I did fix my fence, and no other real issues that I know about. But I do, this is a wonderful, wonderful city. I love the opportunity to live here. I love the opportunity to not be in San Antonio in that regard. But there are things we got to do to help keep Castle Hills just as it's working its way up and becoming a wonderful city again. And so, but I also feel like the contractor steered you wrong, and my heart goes out to you in that regard, and I hope that does get resolved. So I just wanted to share that with you too anyway. So it's not all bad. We got really good people in this community and stuff. So, but okay. So with no other comments, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. There was a motion made to deny the variance. All in favor of the denial?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand. Okay, so aye. Bruce?
Aye.
Okay, Bruce raised his hand. It's unanimous. The motion is denied. Or correction, the variance is denied. I'm sorry.
So, Mr. Squire, in this course, that if there is a denial, the applicant can't come back for 6 months. But at this point, the homeowner would have to become compliant at this stage. There would be different ramifications if they went to court. The time frame would have been different. But in this case, from a compliance standpoint, it must be done between myself and Mr. Zamarone. We can work with you on a time frame, but we would need you to submit again permits that showed essentially being within code, construction material, the fence, so on, for review from that standpoint. Just to let you know.
Okay. Yes, go ahead. Let me go ahead and do this. That question gets very specific. If you could, after we close out the meeting, if you could get with our city manager, and then you can get some clarifications at that point.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be a zoning matter, but we can, between Mr. Zamarone, we can steer you in the right direction on next steps.
Okay, great. Okay, being that there's no further business in front of us, we're going to go ahead and close the meeting. Okay. The time is 6:24 and we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.